I want you to think about something for a second. You're home, alone, doors locked, windows shut. You feel safe. Now imagine finding out you were never alone, not for weeks, not for months. Someone was above you, watching, listening, eating your food, sleeping while you slept. My name is Maya, and what I'm about to tell you, I still can't fully explain how I lived through it. I moved into the place in early spring, second floor of a quiet duplex in a neighborhood that felt just right. Tree-lined streets, a coffee shop on the corner, good lighting through the windows in the morning. The kind of place you imagine yourself staying in for years. The landlord, I'll call him Mr. H, seemed normal enough when we first met. Older guy, 50s, maybe 60. Polite, but a little too polished. The kind of polite that feels rehearsed. He showed me around, pointed out the high ceilings, the original wood floors, the big walk-in closet in the bedroom. He also mentioned, almost casually, that there was an attic, access through a small hatch in the hallway ceiling. He said he used it for storage and that he'd need to come by once or twice a year to check on things. I said fine. I signed the lease, I paid my first month and deposit, and moved in 2 weeks later. Everything was great, for about a month. It started with sounds. Not big, dramatic sounds, not footsteps crashing across the ceiling, more like creaking, like the house was settling, which old houses do. I told myself that's all it was, old bones in an old building. Then it was the cold air. I'd wake up sometimes and feel this thin stream of cool air coming from the hallway, not from the window, not from under the door, from above, from the hatch. I mentioned it to a friend. She laughed and said I was living in a horror movie. We both laughed. I told myself it was the insulation, a draft, nothing. But then came the food. That's when I couldn't explain it away anymore. I am not careless with groceries. I live alone. I know exactly what I buy and what I eat. And I started noticing things disappearing that shouldn't have. Half a loaf of bread, gone. A container of leftovers I was saving for dinner, opened, half-eaten, put back. A bottle of orange juice I had just bought, almost empty. I genuinely thought I was losing my mind. I'd stand in my kitchen holding an empty container, trying to remember eating it. I couldn't. I'd double-check. I'd make mental notes, and it kept happening. I started sleeping with my bedroom door locked, which I'd never done before. Something in my gut was changing. That peaceful feeling I had when I first moved in, it was quietly being replaced by something else. Unease. That low, persistent hum of unease that sits in your chest and doesn't let you breathe all the way. I almost didn't do it. I almost talked myself out of it. I told myself I was overreacting, that I was a young woman living alone for the first time in a big place, and my brain was filling in the blanks with fear. I told myself the food thing was just me forgetting. I told myself the sounds were the pipes, the wood, the wind. But I kept coming back to one thing I couldn't shake, the hatch. Every few days, I'd walk down the hallway and look up at it. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, I could swear the angle was slightly different. Not a lot, just a few millimeters, like it had been moved and put back almost perfectly, but not quite. So I bought a camera. A small one, a basic indoor security camera, the kind you can monitor from your phone. I positioned it in the hallway, pointed directly at the hatch, angled just enough that it looked like I'd pointed it toward the front door. I ran the cable along the baseboard and plugged it in. I didn't tell anyone, not even my friend. I set it to record on motion detection. I went to work the next morning and I waited. That night, I'm sitting in my car in the parking lot of a grocery store, phone in hand, scrolling through the recorded clips. The first few are me, walking to the bathroom, walking to the kitchen. The cat from downstairs somehow got in and triggered it twice. And then, clip recorded at 2:14 in the morning. I pressed play. The hatch opens, slowly from the inside. A hand reaches down, feeling for the edge of the frame, then an arm, then a shoulder. Then a face appears, upside down, hanging from the ceiling, looking both ways down the hallway the way you check for traffic before crossing the street. It was Mr. H, my landlord. He lowered himself down from the attic using a small rope ladder that had been folded up and tucked just inside the hatch. He dropped down so quietly. He'd done this before. You could tell by how practiced it was, how efficient. He wasn't fumbling, he wasn't hesitating. He walked directly to my kitchen. I watched him open my refrigerator. I watched him eat my food standing at the counter with the fridge door open like it was his own kitchen. Because in his mind, I think it was. I think in his mind, that whole apartment was still his. He was in my kitchen for about 12 minutes. Then he walked back down the hallway, he climbed back up the rope ladder, he folded it up behind him, and the hatch closed. I sat in that parking lot for a long time. My hands were shaking, not from cold, from something I didn't even have a word for yet. It wasn't just fear. It was the specific, suffocating feeling of realizing that a space you believed was yours, your home, your private, locked, safe space, had never been fully yours at all. He had a key to my apartment, and he had an entrance I didn't even know was an entrance. I did not go home that night. I drove to my friend's place and I sat on her couch and I showed her the video. She watched it twice. Then she called her boyfriend, who was a paralegal, and he told me the first thing I needed to do, before anything else, was call the police. I did. I filed a report that same night. The officer who took my statement watched the footage on my phone and his expression changed immediately. He told me what Mr. H had done was not just a lease violation, it was criminal, stalking, illegal entry, privacy violation, potentially more depending on what they found up there. They got a warrant. They went back to that building the next day with 2 officers and a detective. I didn't go. I couldn't. My friend sat with me at her kitchen table while I waited. The detective called me 2 hours later. He had been living up there, not just occasionally, not just for storage. He had a full setup in that attic, a cot with bedding, a small lamp run off a battery pack, a cooler, clothes, and a loose board in the attic floor right over my bedroom that had been filed down smooth. He had been watching me sleep. I didn't process that fully for a long time. Even now, telling you this, I feel that same cold weight in my chest. He had positioned himself above my bedroom and watched me through a gap in the floorboards for weeks, maybe months. He was arrested that day, charged with stalking, criminal trespass, and violation of privacy. His lawyer tried to argue it was his property and he had the right to access storage areas. The judge didn't buy it. The footage helped. The witness statements from neighbors who had noticed his car parked nearby at strange hours helped more. I broke my lease under emergency tenant protections. I got my deposit back, the court ordered it, and I moved out within 72 hours of that phone call. People ask me if I feel angry, and yes, absolutely yes. But more than anger, what I felt and what took the longest to work through was the violation of it. The specific horror of having your safe space invaded not with a dramatic break-in, but quietly, surgically, over time, by someone you handed your trust to when you signed that lease. I've since moved twice since then. I check every ceiling, every smoke detector, every vent cover. I walk through any new apartment and I look up as much as I look around. I always will. Mr. H ended up serving time. Not enough, in my opinion, but enough that it made the news locally and other tenants came forward. Turns out I wasn't the first person he'd done this to. There had been a previous tenant 2 years ago who complained about similar things and was told she was imagining it. She wasn't. None of us were. If there's anything I want you to take from this, if you're renting and something feels off, trust it. The strange sounds you explain away, the food you think you forgot eating, the hatch that seems just slightly different than you remember. Trust your instincts. Get the camera. I promise you, your instincts are smarter than your excuses. If this story left you shaken, you're not alone. Drop a comment below and let me know, would you have noticed the signs sooner than I did? And if you're new here, hit subscribe. Stories about secrets, betrayal, and the moments that change everything. I'll see you in the next one.